everyone, and welcome to the Shift Happens podcast. Before we dive into the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Are you a leader navigating constant change and your team is looking for you for answers that you don't have yet? The Change Leader program is here to help. At Tona Business, we work with leaders to turn chaos into clarity, retain your best talents, and lead through disruption without losing trust, momentum, or your own sanity. So if you're facing restructuring, AI shifts, disengagement, or just need your people to rally behind you again, let's talk. Today, we are joined by Meridith Elliott Powell, a Hall of Fame speaker, award-winning author, and renowned sales futurist. She's the CEO of Motion First and the creator of the highly researched Thrive system, a proven methodology that helps organizations turn uncertainty into a competitive advantage. With expertise in sales strategy, leadership, and business transformation, Meredith empowers leaders and teams to embrace disruption, build resilience, and achieve sustainable growth. She's not only an inspiring keynote speaker, but also a thought leader shaping how businesses thrive in today's unpredictable marketplace. Welcome to the Shift Happens podcast, Meredith.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Very excited too. So, Meredith, tell me a little bit about your method, the uncertainty, how to thrive. I'm very curious to know more about it and how you work with businesses around that.
Yeah, so way back in 2016, I was talking to so many businesses and organizations, and everybody was saying the same thing. I mean, if you'll remember 2016, the economy was really strong, and people were saying, I'm having my best year on record, but oh, this uncertainty. And I just started to think, why does uncertainty always have to be a negative, and why does it always have to be a bad thing? And that led me down the path of beginning to research how you could reframe uncertainty and use it as an opportunity to grow your organization. So, in essence, that's become my work and my mission since 2016. And I spend a lot of time researching and studying. And so I've discovered a methodology of how to do that.
Oh, that's nice. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the methodology is really just three simple steps. I mean, number one is you need to adapt your perspective. You need to really start to view disruption as opportunity. You need to focus on people because even in this very high tech world, people and relationships are going to be your shortcut to solving problems and seizing opportunities. And last but not least, you need to collaborate with process. So it's literally an ask for change system, ASK.
Oh, ASK for
Mhm.
change.
Yes.
Awesome. I love it. So, as we think about change, let's start with the personal life. So, can you think about a moment that you faced change in your life and how you dealt with that? And what did you learn with that?
Yeah, I think that I do the work that I do because I did not deal with change well in my life. In fact, I think it's really interesting that as human beings, we would rather stay stuck in bad situations than change. We stay in relationships we don't like, we stay in jobs we don't like, and I did all of that. For me, I had to hit some pretty significant walls and some pretty significant pain points in order for me to. My first husband died of alcoholism, and I stayed married to him because I was so afraid and fearful of change. I stayed in a corporate job far longer than I meant to stay in a corporate job. And so I don't feel like I dealt with change very well, which put me on the mission. And I got to tell you, I think the reason we don't deal with change very well is because we don't know what to do. And that's why I wrote the methodology. So, literally, if you want to change, you don't have to think about how to do it. I just hand you the program of how to do it, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life.
Yeah, now that's amazing. And I think it's about the fear. It's a lot on that, right? As
Yeah,
human beings, it's the fear of the unknown, really.
yeah.
Yes, yes. And how about how do you see companies nowadays managing change? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges?
Yeah, so I'm a really big believer that if you're still managing change, you're far behind the eight ball. Managing change was for a time when we had one or two change initiatives, a year. Now we have one or two a day. I mean, the pace of change has increased 183% in the last 4 years. We're moving 183% faster than we used to. And in a world that is moving that fast, you have no hope of managing change. I think what you need to do is build an incredibly resilient and agile workforce.
Yes. And how would you recommend to do that as a
Yeah,
leader, how to build that?
Yeah, so I think as a leader, you need to shift your mindset and think about getting your team in shape for change. And what I mean by that is that, think about your kids. I mean, we were talking about your 10-year-old before we came on this podcast. And, as a mom, as a parent, you think about what do I need to do to get this child ready for the future, right? How do I get them ready so they can be productive, happy, joyful adults? We need to look at our employees as the same way. I mean, they are now living in a world that is changing like wildfire. Ask yourself, what are you doing to get them in shape? How much are you talking about change? How much are you building their change muscles, getting them to make minor changes so that the big changes aren't overwhelming. I mean, think about it. If we were going to run a marathon and you and I were not runners, we wouldn't sign up and do a marathon next month. We'd spend a year training for that marathon. You need to train your team for change.
Mhm. Yes, and it's soft skills. It takes a while, right? Sometimes I've seen, executives just expecting like this fast response right away, as you just build a culture around that, right?
Right.
Um,
Yes,
and
very much so.
very much so, right? So tell me a little bit about how do you build that culture? How do you strengthen this muscle of change in
Yeah,
the
so number one is I use a tool called a skeptic, and I encourage my clients every single quarter to talk about this skeptic tool. And it simply stands for society, competition, economics, politics, technology, industry, and customers. And the idea is every quarter you get your head out of your business and brainstorm, how do you see society changing? What's changing with our competition? How is economics changing? How are we changing politically and with technology? And then ask yourself, what, if any, of those changes do we need to be paying attention to now? Camilla, basically, it's the difference between what Blockbuster did not do and Netflix did. Netflix spent time looking at what's coming, and Blockbuster only focused internally. So if you want to get your team in shape for change, get them talking about it. The reason they hate change is because they feel like change is something that is done to them. Include them in the process.
Mhm. Yes, disengagement is so key for the buy-in and everything, and for the success of the change for sure, right? And basically, what you're saying, as I think about the methodologies and also what I use in my clients is like, this skeptic is all about you when you do the strategy. It's almost like a SWOT analysis, and you're saying all the elements for them to evaluate, right? And to understand how you apply in your reality. So, yes, very powerful.
Yeah.
I love the systems and the easy names because it's
Yes.
easy for you to keep going, keep doing. And basically, as you said, you encourage once a month or once a quarter to talk about that. Hey, people, skeptic. So then everybody knows
Yes.
already how to do. So it's built
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
culture.
they know, they definitely know, what's coming, and they're excited about it.
Hmm. So when you think about changes that don't work overall in the business environment,
Uh-huh.
what are the key elements that you think that contribute for changes to not work well?
First of all, it is waiting for change to happen. If you're not proactive, um, then change will be. I think the other is resisting it, like sticking your head in the sand and saying, well, I'm not going to deal with that until the change actually shows up. Trying to manage change top down. Like I see so often leaders hold on more tightly to the reins, you know? Um, and so those are just some of my strategies.
And when you think about hold on the leaders, I always like to make the comparison or the metaphor around the bubble. So just I always say leaders get out from the bubble, right? Just engage with people and all. And I think in all the levels, in terms of the whole strategy, the whole alignment with the company, and also communication is so key.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about how to communicate change effectively?
Yeah, I think, first of all, you need to have a very strong vision as a company. Like the vision is the rock that people hold on to. So if you're going to communicate change, you want to make sure that first people have a solid foundation, something that they feel secure in. I mean, I'll explain it like this. I use this analogy a lot of times when I'm speaking from the stage of a whitewater rafting trip. And so many people have been whitewater rafting. And when you go whitewater rafting, a guide says to you, as we go through the rapid, I'm going to focus your attention on the calm water where the raft needs to go. Now, you're in the middle of all this uncertainty. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen with the raft. You don't know what, and neither does the guide. The guide has no idea what the rapids are going to do that day.
Mm-hmm.
But by focusing on the calm water, somehow the raft winds up there. So you've got to give people something, very much something to focus on. The second is that a lot of change is change that we don't like. And and even with that, because it makes us uncomfortable, explaining and communicating the why. I had a company about a year ago that was going through really extreme change. Political regulations had made it that they could no longer do business the way that they had always done business.
Mm-hmm.
And so and people didn't want to give up. They loved their company. They didn't want to give up the product they made, but they had to give it up. And the CEO just went out there with a beautiful message of why it needed to happen. All the efforts they had exhausted to try to not change it, but this was the inevitable, right? And he wanted to keep employing his team. He wanted to provide jobs. He wanted the company to still be there. And people followed him even though they didn't like it. So communicating the why. And then the last piece I'm going to say, so we have vision, we have communicating the why, is give people a voice in it. You can determine what the change needs to be, but give them the how. Give them some level of voice in it so that they feel some level of control.
Yes. Yes, it builds much more engagement and the sense of ownership,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yes, and I love the fact that in your example, the CEO went out there and just communicated the why, engage people. So is this transparency, building the trust in the process is so important.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, I love
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about the resistance too, and it's basically the top question, I think, in change management, right? How to manage resistance, or I even say how to avoid the resistance as much as you can. Do you have any examples to illustrate that?
Yeah, when people, first of all, I think if you're not doing some form of skeptic tool, you're resisting change because you're waiting it you're waiting for that change to come up. I just
Mm-hmm.
said the whole blockbuster piece is that it was clear that the directives were out there. But I'll give you a great one right now. Is anybody who isn't embracing and actively using AI on a daily basis is resisting change. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot like it. It can make you uncomfortable. People who are not addressing the time that we're recording this, there's still the threat of the tariffs out there. If you're not setting your business up for whatever those tariffs may bring, then you're going to be in real trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's absolutely right. And again, as you said, I love the statistics about 183%, right? Faster changes happening in the last, I think, 4 years, you said, right? Yeah, that's impressive because we have the feel of that, but the number is huge. It's even more than I thought.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Right. And as you think, you mentioned about the example in terms of, okay, put the focus and you look for the calm water. So I think it's a very interesting paradox sometimes when we talk about change because we go through these waves of change and then we go through some stability and then we go again and it's kind of always going and going.
Yeah.
So how do you keep the employees, the organization with this stability because you need that some sort of stability, right? To produce to, sell and all of that. So how do you balance that?
I think that number one is, again, you've got to have that vision. Like I should be able to walk through the walls of your organization and I should be able to ask people, what is your vision? What is the vision of the company? Where is this company headed? The other is you need to give people a role. Like they need to understand not a job description because a job description changes, but like let's assume that I work in customer services as a company. And our vision is to literally transform how people use, think, and act about camping equipment. I'll just say that. And
Mhm,
my title is customer service, but my role is to make customers so happy that the experience feels very different here than any place else. Well,
mhm,
if that's how I identify, I'm far more open to change because my identity is never going to change, right? Like that's what I
mhm,
do, but how I do it may flex and change and being open to that.
mhm.
Yeah.
And also like an opportunity, huh? I will not say sell, might not be the best word to sell them the solution. No, but really when you engage, you see, hey, we have this why for the whole organization, for what, makes change, makes sense to do the change, but also there is the why for you, employee, and why you like to embrace that change,
Yeah.
right? The opportunities and all these things. Because I think overall, and that's one of the things that happens when you don't communicate right. Normally, there are the rumors and the thoughts, and the internal thoughts, most of the time, if not all the times, are negative. So
Yeah.
people have a tendency to think, okay, something bad, and then the next thing is I'm going to lose my job. Is
Right.
that fear,
Yes, they're
right?
fearful very much for themselves. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's very personal, even though organization, but it's so personal, and everyone experiences the change in different ways, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
So, have you been a part of, or have you seen a client? I mean, if you can think about any example of a change management that didn't go well.
Yeah, I can think of a million. Well, something like 70% of change initiatives fail. And I can think about like a corporate restructuring that I just saw. A company called me
Mhm,
and asked me to come in because they lost uh 15% of their workforce after they did a restructuring. But when
mhm,
this big, beautiful bill happened here in the United States of America, I don't know if you have an international audience or well, but I want to state that's in the US. There's a story of Bank of America navigated it beautifully, and Wells Fargo really struggled, and they ended up laying off quite a few employees. What was the
mhm,
difference? Wells Fargo, in my opinion, resisted the change. And what I mean by resisting change is if there's even a talk of it happening out there, if there's a talk of it happening out there, you need to pay attention to it. They didn't. Bank of America got ready. I think one of the most important questions we need to ask ourselves as leaders when it comes to change is asking ourselves, what if? What would we do if that change happened? And getting your team ready for either scenario.
mhm. Yes, absolutely. And taking the change as a competitive advantage, right?
Exactly. Very
That
much
makes
so.
such.
Because it is, because most CEOs do not navigate change. I just told you 70% of change initiatives fail. The only 36% of employees today support change initiatives in a company. If you can turn those odds in your favor, if 80% of your change initiatives succeed and 80% of your team supports change, you're going to dominate the market. It's just
Yes.
so exciting.
Yes, it is. It is. It's crazy how much difference that can be, huh? The engagement and all. Because if you think about the results of lack of engagement, like not managing change right, and then you have disengaged people. I mean, it's so many things. You said, I mean, the layoffs, people leaving and all, right? And resigning. People disengaged, they don't produce well, obviously, right? And they have your thoughts already. Okay, looking for another job, thinking about other things. It's just so much loss,
Yeah.
and also the cost of rehiring people and all. I mean, if you think about this very the easily measures, and the ones that are more just harder to measure, of course, which engagement is harder to measure overall, but it is just huge.
Yes, yes, very, 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 very much so. It's the biggest challenge facing organizations and leaders today, bar none. And the one that organizations and leaders say they have no plan for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes. And it's interesting because when I ask some organizations about, okay, do you understand what is the cost of rehiring people? Because technically you can get
yeah,
this cost. And I don't know if people don't want to track and don't want to see, oh, what is the deal, but normally I don't get a response from that.
right.
It's
Yeah.
because maybe it takes so much work to re-engage and all. I don't know what is the deal, but it's just hard, and they prefer seeing like the bottom line of the result and not thinking about all the leaks in the bucket, all the holes, right? So you need to keep putting water in the bucket, and you have all those holes there, and then you just see the bucket, the water, right, and you don't see the holes. So I like that association, but pretty much that happens a lot, right?
Yeah, it happens a lot. Here's why my theory on
Mm,
uh my theory on that. My theory on that is the fact that bottom line is easy to calculate. When you talk about the fact that I hired an employee and how much it costs me to train them and to get them in place, and for the first year they're not even effective. They take a year of doing the job to be effective. And then I end up laying them off, like the example I just gave with Wells Fargo. That's hard to calculate. And we don't like that mess because the truth is, I think we know in there it's a massive cost. I can tell you from the sales side that it takes 6 times as much money to recruit a new customer as it does to expand and develop an existing customer. So I imagine the statistics are about in the same place.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it makes sense.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if we shift gears a little bit now, Meredith, and towards the future.
Yeah.
So what do you see in terms of trends in the businesses around your environment? And when you think about uncertainty, how companies are embracing, tell me a little bit about the opportunity and what is the 5-year vision that you have?
Yeah. So the 5-year vision I have is, first of all, I mean, who really knows, right? But I think that I think one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is the importance of the soft skills will come back. Is that AI is going to take over so many tasks and repetitive things that we do that the importance of the soft skills, such as your ability to communicate, your ability to influence, and humanizing the business experience is going to really go on steroids. And it's interesting because it's the biggest thing missing in this next generation coming up, and so it's going to be the people that have those skills are going to be the ones. And so I think you're going to see a lot more hyper personalization. You're going to see this beautiful blend of technology and human experience. And I think ironically, it's going to take us back to kind of the way we did business. And I mean, I'm old enough that we literally were one business on a corner. We had one competitor down the street. We all joined the Rotary Club and the Kiwanis Club and our Chamber of Commerce, and we volunteered in our community. That's how we did business. And with COVID and remote work and technology, we've pulled away from that. I think AI is going to bring that back.
Mhm. Yes. Well, and I love what you're saying. It's interesting that you mentioned about the new generation, which is, I think, the challenge, the most common challenge that I hear from everybody that I interview and my clients. It's
Yeah.
like how to really keep them in motivated and all. Well, I'll guess that first is just to understand that the turnover is going to be higher. That's kind of the norm. But how to keep them in really engaged and motivated. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think the best way to keep people motivated is, again, I sound like a broken record, but make sure that they're driven by the vision. Remember that people are motivated not by doing a job, they're motivated by doing making a difference. And so, I mean, I'll give you an example. The most disengaged workers in the country work for the US government. The most engaged work for nonprofits. What's the difference? The US government will tell you they do a job. I work at the post office, I collect taxes. People who work for a nonprofit tell you that they save dogs and cats. Even if what they do is answer the phone, They'll tell you that they help people at the end of life. They're driven by a purpose. So understand that money and days off and remote work, that's all icing on the cake. If that first piece isn't there, people will not be motivated. That's the biggest driver that they've got. The second is really give them a voice. Give them the ability, once they buy into your vision, make sure that they get to have some say in how things happen and they change. And last but not least, this is going to sound crazy, but it's true. You need a rules based environment. Accountability keeps people motivated, it makes them feel safe and it makes them commit. So you've got to give heavy accountability. I'll go back to like what I said about kids. You don't hold your kids accountable because you hate them. You hold them accountable because they need to learn the consequences so they grow up to be productive adults. It's the same with our employees.
Mhm. Yes. And for sure is going to be a bigger differentiation, I would say, for kids that are able to develop these soft skills.
Yes.
It's interesting that I was having this conversation with my daughter like last week, and I was trying to teach her all of this, because even, when you talk, if they are doing something or TV or what, they're responding like that. Uh-huh, yes, mama. Say, no,
Yeah.
look at me. We need to connect. This is important. You
Yes.
grab a phone and you talk, and not just text. It's like things like that makes such a difference because you
Such
really
a difference.
connect with the person.
Yeah.
There's so much about the body language that you don't see, right?
So
'Cause
true.
most communication, right? I mean, the biggest part of the communication is really the body language. So if you don't observe, you're not looking, you don't have this empathy, you miss it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so true. The biggest thing that I see missing, and I guess it's because it's of social media, is that people don't understand the importance of asking questions and learning about other people. And that's where the value is, because we're so used to getting on Facebook or Instagram and posting about ourselves that we don't understand the relationship part of investing and learning about other people.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
very well said.
Yeah.
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 So, thinking about wrapping up today's
Yeah.
episode, tell me, what do you think are the key elements for your success in your
Yeah.
career?
And for mine, gosh, I think a serious desire to continue to learn. I'm such a big learner. I mean, you will always find me reading a book, listening to a podcast, and being open to learning from anybody. Like I was playing tennis at 6 o'clock this morning, and I left, and the couple that cleans our racket club, and I just looked at him and I thought, I don't know that he has ever missed a day of work. He's so committed to what he does and learning from that. Like you're so open to learning from whomever is there to teach you the lesson. I would say the second is I'm incredibly disciplined. I don't think I'm necessarily smarter or no, I know I'm not smarter or more talented than other people, but I'm really disciplined. I will do the boring things, day in and day out. And the third I would say is that I'm really okay with failure. Like it's part of my process. And so I have made a lot of mistakes. I've failed quite a bit and I'm very resilient. I get back up and I dust myself off and I keep going. So I think those things are that.
Wow, so much learning from you today, Meredith. Thank you so much. I mean, the last one specifically, I can resonate because since I started my entrepreneurship journey, that's really where my biggest learning has been. You know,
Yeah.
being used to that, just understanding that failure is a process. And
Yes.
it's not because you're not good at it. You just keep
No.
going and learning, developing, and all that in the discipline anyway. Well, I loved everything that you said. It's amazing.
Thank
Well, thank you so much. And
thank
I'm
you.
pretty sure the audience will love this episode today. So much knowledge in 30 minutes of conversation. I do appreciate your time availability. And yes, and to all, thank you so much for listening to us today and see you the next time at Shift Happens podcast. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.